The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain of eastern Afghanistan as Staff Sergeant Maria Vasquez adjusted her sniper scope for the third time in 10 minutes. The weight of her Barrett M82 rifle felt familiar in her hands, like an extension of herself after 8 years in the Army's elite sniper program. She had been the first woman to complete the grueling training, facing skepticism and outright hostility from instructors who believed women had no place behind a precision rifle. Today, that training would be put to the ultimate test. "Overwatch is in position," Maria whispered into her radio, her voice barely audible even to herself. She lay prone on a ridge overlooking a small valley where intelligence reports suggested a high-value target was meeting with local Taliban commanders. The mission was supposed to be straightforward: observe, report, and, if necessary, eliminate threats to the Navy SEAL team moving through the valley below. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison led the 6-man SEAL team through the narrow mountain pass. Morrison was a veteran of 3 deployments, his weathered face telling stories of countless missions in some of the world's most dangerous places. His team moved with the fluid precision that came from years of training together. They communicated through hand signals, each man knowing exactly where the others were at all times. The intelligence briefing had been thorough. The target compound sat at the bottom of a horseshoe-shaped valley, accessible only through the pass the SEALs were currently navigating. Satellite imagery showed minimal security, with perhaps 3 or 4 guards visible around the building's perimeter. It should have been a textbook operation: get in, capture or eliminate the target, and extract before dawn. Maria watched the SEALs through her scope, tracking their movement across the rocky terrain 600 meters below. Her position on the ridge gave her perfect oversight of the entire valley, which was exactly why she had chosen it despite the challenging climb required to reach it. The early morning light was perfect for long-range shooting, with minimal wind and excellent visibility. Something felt wrong. Years of combat experience had taught Maria to trust her instincts, and right now every nerve in her body was screaming danger. The valley was too quiet. In her previous deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, she had learned that even in the most remote locations, there were always sounds: birds, insects, the distant bleating of goats. This valley was silent as a tomb. She swept her scope across the ridgelines surrounding the valley, methodically checking every possible sniper position. The terrain was perfect for it: dozens of rocky outcroppings and caves that could conceal a shooter. If she were planning to ambush a team in this valley, these heights would be exactly where she would position her marksman. "Overwatch to team leader," Maria radioed. "Something doesn't feel right up here. Valley's too quiet." Morrison's voice crackled back through her earpiece. "Copy, Overwatch. We're seeing the same thing down here. No movement at the compound, no guards visible. Could be they're all inside." The SEAL team had advanced to within 300 meters of the target building. Through her scope, Maria could see them taking positions behind a cluster of boulders, preparing for their final approach. Morrison was right. There were no visible sentries around the compound, which was unusual for a meeting of this importance. That's when Maria saw the first glint of sunlight reflecting off metal. 800 meters to her left, on the opposite ridge, something had caught the morning sun for just a fraction of a second. Maria immediately swung her scope toward the location, her heart rate spiking. It took her several seconds to spot it again: a carefully camouflaged sniper position dug into the rocks, nearly invisible except for that momentary reflection. "Contact," she whispered into her radio. "Sniper position on the western ridge, approximately 800 meters from my location." She continued scanning, her trained eye now picking up details that would have been invisible to most observers. There, another position on the eastern slope, this one even better concealed. The sniper had natural rock formations providing both cover and concealment, with multiple shooting lanes covering the valley floor. Maria's blood ran cold as she realized the truth. This wasn't a simple capture mission. It was a trap. "Team leader, you need to abort," she radioed urgently. "I count at least 2 sniper positions with overlapping fields of fire. You're walking into an ambush." Morrison's response was immediate. "Can you neutralize them?" Maria was already calculating distances and wind conditions. The first target was at 800 meters, a challenging shot, but well within her capabilities. The second was closer, perhaps 600 meters, but positioned in a way that would make the shot angle difficult. Negative on simultaneous engagement, she replied. If I take the first shot, the others will know I'm here. They'll either disappear or start shooting at you while I'm repositioning. She continued her sweep of the ridge lines, and her worst fears were confirmed. A third position on the northern slope, a fourth tucked into shadows on the southern ridge. Each one had been carefully chosen to provide maximum coverage of the valley while remaining nearly invisible to anyone on the ground. Team leader, Maria's voice was tight with urgency. I count 4 confirmed sniper positions. This is a coordinated ambush. You need to extract now. But it was too late. Even as she spoke, Morrison's voice exploded over the radio. Contact! Contact! We're taking fire from multiple positions. The valley erupted in chaos. Muzzle flashes winked from the ridge lines as the hidden snipers opened up on the SEAL team. The crack of high-powered rifles echoed off the stone walls, followed immediately by the distinctive snap of bullets passing close overhead. Maria watched in horror as the SEALs scrambled for better cover. They were pinned down in the open, caught in a deadly crossfire with nowhere to run. The nearest adequate cover was over 100 meters away, an impossible distance to cross under accurate sniper fire. We're surrounded. Morrison's voice was strained, but controlled. At least 6 different shooting positions. Request immediate fire support. Maria was already moving, her rifle tracking toward the first target. Through her scope, she could see the muzzle flash from the western ridge. The sniper was firing methodically, taking his time with each shot. Professional. Experienced. She controlled her breathing, feeling her heart rate slow despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. 800 meters. Moderate crosswind from the south. Target partially concealed, but visible enough for a headshot. Maria squeezed the trigger. The Barrett's roar echoed across the valley, and through her scope she saw the distant figure jerk backward and disappear behind the rocks. One down. But her position was compromised now. She could see muzzle flashes swinging toward her location as the remaining snipers tried to identify where the shot had come from. Maria was already moving, sliding backward from her position as bullets began striking the rocks around her. The SEAL team was still pinned down, their situation growing more desperate by the minute. Maria could hear the strain in Morrison's voice as he tried to coordinate his team's response while under fire from multiple directions. Overwatch, what's your status? Morrison called. 1 target down, repositioning for next shot, Maria replied, crawling rapidly along the ridge toward a secondary position she had identified earlier. Stay low, I'm working on it. She reached her new position and immediately began scanning for the second sniper. The eastern slope was more challenging. The shooter had positioned himself in deep shadows, making him nearly impossible to spot. Maria would have to wait for his muzzle flash to reveal his location. The wait felt like an eternity. Below, she could hear the SEALs returning fire, but they were at a severe disadvantage. Sniper rifles outranged their assault weapons by hundreds of meters, and the elevated positions made it nearly impossible for them to achieve effective hits. There, a wink of fire from the shadows. Maria immediately shifted her aim, leading the target slightly to account for the crosswind. 600 meters, downhill shot, target in partial concealment. Her second shot rang out across the valley. This time, she didn't wait to confirm the hit, already moving toward her third position. The remaining snipers would be actively hunting her now, and staying in one place too long would be fatal. 2 down, she reported, still tracking multiple targets. The response from below was immediate. Outstanding work, Overwatch. We're still taking fire from at least 4 more positions. Maria's heart sank. She had hoped that eliminating 2 snipers would give the SEALs enough breathing room to reach better cover. But the remaining shooters were maintaining their deadly crossfire. Worse, they were now aware that there was a counter-sniper in the area and would be much more cautious about exposing themselves. She reached her third position and immediately began scanning the northern slope. This sniper had been quiet since the engagement began, which told Maria he was either very disciplined or waiting for a specific target. Professional snipers often held their fire until they had a high-value shot, preferring to remain undetected rather than waste ammunition on suppressive fire. Through her scope, Maria studied every rock, every shadow, every possible hiding place on the northern ridge. The morning sun was climbing higher now, changing the light angles and revealing details that had been hidden earlier. Movement. So slight it was almost imperceptible, but Maria's trained eye caught it immediately. A tiny adjustment in the shadows, barely visible even through her high-powered scope. The sniper was repositioning for a shot, probably targeting Morrison, who had been directing his team's defense. Maria didn't hesitate. 700 meters, uphill shot, target barely visible in deep shadow. She aimed for center mass since a headshot would be nearly impossible given the limited target exposure. Her third shot echoed across the valley. Through her scope, she saw the figure tumble forward out of the shadows, his rifle clattering down the rocky slope. 3 down, she reported, already scanning for the fourth target. But the remaining snipers had learned from their comrades' fate. Maria could see that they had pulled back deeper into their positions, making themselves nearly invisible. They were still firing, but much more sporadically, taking only high-percentage shots before immediately changing position. This was going to require a different approach. Maria studied the tactical situation from her elevated position. The SEALs were still pinned down, but the reduction in enemy fire had allowed them to consolidate their position and organize a more effective defense. Morrison's team was professional enough to take advantage of any opportunity she created. She identified the most likely position for the fourth sniper, a cluster of boulders on the eastern ridge that provided excellent concealment and multiple escape routes. If she were in his position, that's where she would be. But instead of trying to spot him, Maria decided to force him to reveal himself. She aimed at the rocks themselves, sending a heavy .50 caliber round crashing into the stone formation. The massive bullet shattered against the rocks, sending fragments flying in all directions. She fired again, then again, systematically destroying the sniper's cover and forcing him to move. There, a figure scrambling from the collapsing height. Maria's fourth shot caught him in mid-stride, sending him tumbling down the rocky slope. "For down," she reported, searching for remaining targets. The valley had grown noticeably quieter, but Maria knew there were still at least 3 more snipers out there. They would be the most experienced, the most patient, the most dangerous. These would be the ones who had held their fire from the beginning, waiting for exactly this moment when the counter-sniper became overconfident. She was proven right 30 seconds later when a bullet struck the rocks inches from her head, followed immediately by the crack of a high-powered rifle. One of the remaining snipers had finally revealed his position, and he was good. Very good. Maria rolled sideways as another bullet sparked off the stone where she had been lying. The sniper had her range and was adjusting his aim with each shot. She needed to move, but any movement would expose her to fire from the other hidden shooters. Below in the valley, Morrison's voice crackled over the radio. "Overwatch, you're taking fire. What's your status?" "Still in the fight," Maria replied grimly, crawling rapidly toward yet another position. "At least 3 more targets out there, and they're good." The bullet that nearly took Maria's head had come from the southern ridge, almost directly across the valley from her current position. The shot placement told her everything she needed to know about her opponent. This was no ordinary Taliban fighter. The precision, the timing, the patience to wait for the perfect moment all indicated a professional sniper, possibly foreign-trained. Maria pressed herself against the rocks, using every inch of available cover as she studied the southern ridgeline through her scope. The morning sun was now high enough to create harsh shadows and bright reflections, making target identification even more challenging. Her opponent had chosen his moment well. The changing light conditions would work in his favor. Another shot rang out, this one striking so close that rock fragments peppered her face. The sniper was walking his shots in, using the classic technique of bracketing his target to ensure a hit. Maria had perhaps seconds before the next round found its mark. She made a decision that went against every principle of sniper tactics. Instead of retreating to safety, she exposed herself deliberately, rolling into the open for just long enough to draw the sniper's fire. The gamble paid off. She saw the muzzle flash from a position she hadn't previously identified, tucked deep into a natural cave formation. The shot missed her by inches, but Maria now had what she needed. Without hesitation, she aimed for the dark opening where she had seen the flash and fired. The massive .50 caliber round struck the cave entrance, sending a shower of rock fragments into the interior. Through her scope, she watched for movement. There, a figure stumbling backward, clutching his face. Her shot hadn't killed him, but the rock fragments had done enough damage to take him out of the fight. 5 down, she reported, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. But the remaining 2 snipers were learning from each engagement. Maria realized she was facing the most dangerous opponents she had ever encountered, professionals who adapted quickly and didn't make the same mistake twice. The silence that followed was more ominous than the previous gunfire. Maria knew the last 2 snipers were repositioning, possibly coordinating their attack. They would have studied her pattern by now, identified her preferred shooting positions, and developed a plan to eliminate her. Through her earpiece, she could hear Morrison organizing his team for a movement to better cover. The reduction in sniper fire had given them breathing room, but they were still trapped in the valley with limited escape routes. "Overwatch, we're going to try to reach that cluster of boulders at your 10 o'clock, Morrison radioed. "Can you provide cover?" Maria studied the route through her scope. It was about 60 meters of open ground, with multiple spots where the remaining snipers could engage the moving SEALs. But staying pinned down wasn't an option. Eventually, enemy reinforcements would arrive, and the tactical situation would become hopeless. "Roger, I'll suppress likely sniper positions during your movement," she replied. She began systematically firing at every possible hide on the surrounding ridges, not necessarily expecting to hit anything, but forcing the enemy snipers to keep their heads down. The Barrett's heavy rounds shattered rocks and sent debris flying, creating a screen of destruction that would make accurate shooting difficult. "Moving," Morrison called. Maria watched through her scope as the 6 SEALs bounded across the open ground, using proper fire and maneuver tactics. 3 men moved while the others provided covering fire. Then, they switched roles. It was textbook execution under pressure. They almost made it. The shot came from a position Maria hadn't identified, somewhere on the western ridge where she had eliminated the first sniper. One of the SEALs, a young petty officer named Rodriguez, stumbled and went down just 10 meters short of cover. Man down. Man down." Morrison's voice was tight with controlled anger. Maria saw Rodriguez trying to crawl the remaining distance to cover, his left leg clearly damaged by the sniper's bullet. The other SEALs were laying down suppressing fire, but they couldn't see the sniper's position any better than Maria could. She had to find that shooter, and fast. Rodriguez was bleeding and vulnerable, and it was only a matter of time before the sniper took another shot. Maria began a methodical search of the western ridge, focusing on areas that would provide a good shooting angle to where Rodriguez had fallen. The sniper had to be in a position that allowed him to see the valley floor, but also provided concealment from her overwatch position. There, a slight irregularity in the rock formation that hadn't been there before. Someone had constructed a new hide using loose stones, probably during the night before the ambush. It was nearly invisible, blending perfectly with the natural terrain. But Maria's trained eye had caught the subtle difference, and now she could make out the dark opening where the rifle barrel would emerge. The challenge was that she couldn't see the sniper himself, only his probable position. She would have to force him to reveal himself, which meant putting Rodriguez at even greater risk. She aimed carefully at the hide and fired, sending a heavy round crashing into the stone construction. The improvised position partially collapsed, and she immediately fired again, systematically destroying the cover. A figure emerged from the rubble, moving quickly toward a secondary position. Maria tracked him with her scope, leading the target as he scrambled across the rocky terrain. 800 meters, moving target, uphill shot. She squeezed the trigger and watched through her scope as the figure stopped abruptly, then collapsed among the rocks. 6 down, she reported. "Rodriguez, can you move?" The wounded SEAL's voice came back strong. "Took one in the leg, but I can make it to cover with help." 2 SEALs immediately moved to assist Rodriguez, while the others maintained security. They reached the boulder cluster without further incident, which confirmed what Maria had suspected. Only one sniper remained. But this last one would be the most dangerous. He had watched 6 of his comrades eliminated by a single counter-sniper, had seen their tactics fail, and had learned from their mistakes. He would be patient, careful, and deadly accurate when he finally chose to engage. Maria repositioned again, moving to a location she hadn't used before. The last sniper would have identified her previous positions by now and might be planning to target one of them. She needed to stay unpredictable while simultaneously hunting for an opponent who had proven himself extremely skilled. The psychological pressure was intense. Maria knew that one mistake, one moment of carelessness, could be fatal. The remaining sniper only needed a single shot, while she had to locate and eliminate a target who was now fully aware of her capabilities. She forced herself to slow down, to think like her opponent. Where would she position herself if she were the last sniper? It would need to be a location with multiple escape routes, excellent concealment, and a clear field of fire to the valley floor. Most importantly, it would need to be somewhere that provided cover from her overwatch position. Maria systematically eliminated possibilities, using her knowledge of sniper tactics and the local terrain. The northern ridge was too exposed to her position. The eastern slope had too few escape routes. The western ridge had been compromised by the previous engagement. That left the southern ridge, but not the area where she had already eliminated one sniper. It would be somewhere else, probably farther east where the terrain provided better concealment. She was proven right when a shot suddenly rang out from exactly that direction. But the target wasn't her. It was the SEAL team's position. The bullet struck the rocks near Morrison's head, missing by inches. The last sniper had revealed his position, and Maria immediately swung her scope toward the source of the shot. There, a well-concealed hide built into a natural rock formation, nearly invisible except for the wisps of gun smoke drifting from the opening. 900 meters. Extreme range even for her weapon and training. The target was mostly concealed, presenting only a small portion of his body for a shot. Wind conditions were variable due to the mountain terrain. Maria controlled her breathing and studied the target through her scope. She could see part of the sniper's rifle and a small section of his torso. A headshot would be impossible at this range with the limited target exposure. It would have to be center mass. She made her final calculations, accounting for distance, wind, and the downward angle of the shot. This was the kind of precision shooting that separated professional snipers from ordinary marksmen. A single shot at extreme range against a partially concealed target. Maria squeezed the trigger slowly, following through with her sight picture as the Barrett roared and bucked against her shoulder. Through her scope, she saw the distant figure jerk backward and disappear into the shadows of the hide. For long seconds, nothing moved on the southern ridge. Then, she saw it, the sniper's rifle sliding down the rocky slope, clattering over the stones until it came to rest far below the shooting position. 7 down, Maria reported, her voice quiet but satisfied. All identified sniper positions neutralized. The valley fell silent for the first time since the ambush began. Maria continued scanning the ridgelines, searching for any sign of additional threats. But the engagement appeared to be over. Morrison's voice came over the radio, filled with amazement and gratitude. "Overwatch, I don't know how the hell you did that, but you just saved our lives. Outstanding shooting." Maria allowed herself a moment of satisfaction, but she knew the mission wasn't over. The SEAL team still needed to extract from the valley. Rodriguez required medical attention, and there was always the possibility of enemy reinforcements arriving. "What's the status on Rodriguez?" she asked. "Bullet went through his calf, missed the bone. He'll need medical attention, but he can walk with assistance," Morrison replied. "We're ready to begin extraction." Maria maintained her overwatch position as the SEAL team began their movement out of the valley. She swept the ridgelines continuously, watching for any sign of additional threats. The enemy had committed significant resources to this ambush. 7 trained snipers represented a major investment in personnel and equipment. It was possible they had additional assets in the area. The extraction proceeded without incident. Maria watched through her scope as the SEALs helped Rodriguez up the rocky path toward the extraction point, their movements careful but confident. The immediate threat had been eliminated, but everyone remained alert for additional dangers. As the team reached the crest of the ridge and disappeared from view, Maria began her own movement to the extraction point. She moved carefully, knowing that any surviving enemy forces would be extremely interested in capturing or killing the sniper who had destroyed their ambush. The climb down from her position was treacherous, requiring her to navigate steep rock faces while carrying her heavy rifle and equipment. But Maria had trained extensively in mountain warfare, and she descended with practiced efficiency. 30 minutes later, she reached the extraction point where the SEAL team was waiting with Rodriguez, who was receiving first aid for his wounded leg. Morrison looked up as she approached, his expression one of professional respect mixed with amazement. "I've been doing this for 15 years, Morrison said as Maria reached the extraction point. "And I've never seen shooting like that. 7 targets at ranges up to 900 meters, most of them in concealed positions. That was something else entirely." Maria checked her rifle and equipment while responding. "Just doing my job, sir. Glad everyone made it out." But, privately, she knew Morrison was right. What she had accomplished in that valley went far beyond standard sniper operations. Taking down 7 enemy shooters in a coordinated ambush, while under fire herself, represented the kind of precision shooting that most snipers only dreamed about. The helicopter extraction arrived 20 minutes later, its rotors echoing off the valley walls as it settled onto the rocky landing zone. As they loaded Rodriguez aboard for medical evacuation, Maria caught sight of movement on one of the ridges they had just left. "Movement on the eastern ridge," she called out, raising her rifle. Through her scope, she could see a group of armed figures moving along the ridgeline, probably the reinforcements she had been expecting. They were too far away to engage the extraction team, but their presence confirmed that the enemy had committed significant resources to this operation. "Time to go," Morrison said, climbing aboard the helicopter. As they lifted off, Maria looked down at the valley where the engagement had taken place. Somewhere among those rocks were the bodies of 7 enemy snipers, each one eliminated by a single shot from her rifle. It was the kind of precision shooting that would become legendary among special operations forces. But Maria's mind was already moving beyond the immediate tactical success to the larger implications of what had happened. This hadn't been a random ambush by local Taliban fighters. The level of coordination, the professional sniper positions, the quality of equipment she had glimpsed through her scope, all of it pointed to foreign involvement, possibly Iranian or Pakistani military advisors. During the flight back to base, Morrison debriefed his team while Maria maintained security watch through the helicopter's windows. The intelligence value of what they had encountered was enormous. Someone had invested considerable time and resources in setting up that ambush, which meant there were larger operations in the area. "We need to get a team back there to examine those sniper positions," Morrison said over the helicopter's intercom. "The equipment and tactics we saw today could tell us a lot about who's training these guys." Maria nodded in agreement. Professional counterintelligence analysis of the sniper hides would reveal valuable information about enemy capabilities and possibly even identify specific foreign advisors. But it would have to be done quickly before the enemy could police up the evidence. Back at the forward operating base, Maria cleaned and inspected her rifle while Morrison submitted his after-action report. The Barrett had performed flawlessly throughout the engagement, its heavy rounds providing the power and accuracy needed for extreme-range shots. But Maria knew that equipment was only part of the equation. The real factor had been training, experience, and the ability to maintain precision under extreme pressure. Major Patricia Williams, the base intelligence officer, arrived to debrief Maria personally. Williams was a West Point graduate with multiple deployments and a reputation for thoroughness. She understood the significance of what had happened in the valley. "Walk me through each engagement," Williams said, spreading topographical maps across the briefing room table. "I need to understand exactly how they positioned those snipers and how you defeated them." Maria used the maps to reconstruct the battle, marking each sniper position and explaining her tactical decisions. Williams took detailed notes, asking pointed questions about equipment, tactics, and the skill level of the enemy shooters. "The first 3 were good, but not exceptional," Maria explained. "They made basic mistakes, staying in position too long after being detected, using predictable firing patterns. But the last 4 were professionals. They adapted quickly, used excellent camouflage, and coordinated their fire effectively." Williams studied the map markings. 7 trained snipers in one ambush represents a significant investment in resources. This wasn't a local operation. Agreed. The equipment I saw through my scope looked too sophisticated for typical Taliban forces. Some of those rifles appeared to be foreign-made, possibly Iranian or Pakistani. The debriefing continued for 2 hours, with Williams extracting every detail Maria could remember about the engagement. The information would be forwarded to higher headquarters for analysis and would likely influence future operations in the region. Later that evening, Maria sat in her quarters cleaning her equipment and reflecting on the day's events. She had eliminated 7 enemy snipers in a single engagement, a feat that would have been considered impossible by most military professionals. But she felt no sense of triumph or celebration. Each of those shots had represented a human life, and Maria never forgot the weight of that responsibility. Her satellite phone buzzed with an encrypted message from her commanding officer back at Fort Bragg. Word of the engagement had already reached the highest levels of Special Operations Command, and there were requests for detailed technical reports on her shooting techniques and equipment performance. Maria smiled grimly at the message. The Army would want to analyze every aspect of what had happened, looking for lessons that could be applied to future training and operations. She understood the necessity, but she also knew that no amount of analysis could fully capture the split-second decisions and instinctive reactions that had made the difference in that valley. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Morrison stood in the hallway, holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing an expression of serious respect. "Mind if I come in? There's something I want to discuss." Maria gestured him inside, accepting the coffee gratefully. Morrison sat down across from her, studying her face in the dim light of the quarters. "I've been thinking about what happened today," he began. 7 confirmed kills in a single engagement, all at extreme range, while under fire yourself. That's not just good shooting. That's something entirely different. Maria sipped her coffee and waited for him to continue. "I've worked with a lot of snipers over the years," Morrison went on. "Some very good ones. But what you did today puts you in a different category entirely. You saved 6 lives today, probably including my own." "Just doing my job," Maria replied. But Morrison shook his head. "No, that was far beyond anyone's job description. I want you to know that my team understands what you did for us. Rodriguez is going to make a full recovery because you eliminated those snipers before they could finish the job." They sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, both understanding the weight of what had transpired. Finally, Morrison stood to leave. "There's going to be a lot of attention focused on this engagement," he said. "Higher command is already asking questions. Just remember that what you accomplished today is going to save lives for years to come. The lessons learned from this engagement will make every sniper in the military more effective." After Morrison left, Maria returned to her equipment maintenance. She field-stripped her rifle completely, inspecting every component for signs of wear or damage. The Barrett had fired 12 rounds during the engagement, each one demanding perfect performance. The weapon had delivered, but Maria knew that mechanical reliability was only as good as the shooter behind it. Her thoughts turned to the 7 enemy snipers she had eliminated. Each one had been someone's son, possibly husband and father. They had chosen to take up arms against American forces, but they had also demonstrated considerable skill and courage in their final battle. Maria had killed them not out of hatred or anger, but out of professional necessity. It was a distinction she held on to as a way of maintaining her humanity in an inherently inhumane profession. The base communications officer arrived with another encrypted message, this one bearing the seal of Joint Special Operations Command. Maria was being recommended for the Silver Star, the 3rd highest decoration for valor in combat. The recommendation specifically cited her extraordinary heroism and exceptional marksmanship while under enemy fire, resulting in the elimination of 7 enemy combatants and the preservation of American lives. Maria set the message aside without much emotion. Awards and decorations were recognition of professional performance, but they didn't change what had happened or how she felt about it. She had done what needed to be done, using skills developed through years of intensive training and combat experience. Her real satisfaction came from knowing that Morrison's team had made it home alive. Rodriguez would heal from his leg wound and return to duty. The other 5 SEALs would continue their missions, using the tactical lessons learned from this engagement to become even more effective operators. That night, Maria dreamed about the valley. In her dream, she was back on the ridge, watching through her scope as the 7 enemy snipers took their positions. But, this time, instead of eliminating them, she found herself studying their faces, wondering about their stories, their motivations, their families back home. She woke before dawn, as was her habit, and immediately began preparing for the day's mission briefings. The war would continue, and there would be other valleys, other engagements, other life and death decisions to be made through a rifle scope. But Maria carried with her the knowledge that when it mattered most, when the lives of American soldiers hung in the balance, she had performed with a level of precision and effectiveness that few could match. The 7 shots that had echoed across that Afghan valley had not only saved 6 lives that day, but had also established a new standard for what was possible in the deadly profession of military sniper operations. The intelligence reports from the recovered sniper positions confirmed Maria's initial assessment. The enemy weapons were indeed foreign manufactured, with Iranian markings on several items. The level of professional preparation found in the hides indicated extensive training by experienced military advisors. Most significantly, documents recovered from one of the positions revealed that the ambush had been specifically planned to target American Special Operations Forces. Intelligence indicated that several previous successful missions in the area had prompted enemy commanders to commit significant resources to eliminating what they saw as their most dangerous opponents. The 7 enemy snipers had represented months of preparation and training, supported by foreign advisors and equipped with sophisticated weapons and optics. Their elimination by a single American sniper in one engagement had delivered a devastating blow to enemy operations in the region. Within weeks, intelligence reports indicated a significant reduction in enemy sniper activity throughout the province. The psychological impact of losing 7 trained marksmen in a single engagement had apparently convinced enemy commanders to reconsider their tactics. For Maria, these strategic implications were gratifying but secondary to the immediate tactical success. She had been given a mission, provide overwatch and protection for a SEAL team, and she had accomplished it with exceptional results. The broader impact of her actions was a bonus, but not her primary focus. Her focus remained on the next mission, the next opportunity to use her skills in service of her fellow soldiers and her country. 3 weeks after the Valley engagement, Maria found herself in a briefing room at Bagram Airfield, surrounded by some of the highest-ranking Special Operations commanders in Afghanistan. Colonel James Patterson, commander of Joint Special Operations Task Force, had personally requested her presence for a classified intelligence briefing. Staff Sergeant Vasquez, Patterson began, "Your engagement in the Kunar Valley has had effects far beyond what you might realize. We're seeing a complete shift in enemy sniper tactics across 3 provinces." The briefing slides showed a dramatic decrease in sniper attacks against American forces. Enemy marksmen who had previously operated with confidence were now avoiding engagement, apparently unwilling to risk confrontation with American counter-snipers. More importantly, Patterson continued, "The equipment and documents recovered from those positions have given us unprecedented insight into foreign training programs operating in this region. We now know the identity of at least 3 Iranian advisors who have been training Taliban snipers." Maria listened to the intelligence summary with professional interest, but her attention was focused on the tactical implications rather than the strategic ones. The enemy would adapt to their losses, developing new techniques and tactics to replace those that had failed in the valley. "Which brings us to why you're here," Patterson said. "We've identified the location of the primary training facility where those snipers were prepared. It's a compound in the mountains near the Pakistani border, heavily defended and extremely well concealed." The next slide showed satellite imagery of a remote mountain complex, nestled in terrain that looked remarkably similar to where Maria had fought her 7-target engagement. The compound was surrounded by natural defensive positions and had clearly been chosen for its tactical advantages. Intelligence indicates there are currently 12 to 15 foreign advisors at this facility, along with approximately 30 Taliban fighters undergoing advanced sniper training, Patterson explained. The facility represents the source of the sniper threat we've been facing across the region. Maria studied the satellite images, automatically identifying the defensive positions and likely fields of fire. The compound would be extremely difficult to assault directly, requiring significant resources and likely resulting in heavy casualties. "What's the mission?" she asked. Patterson smiled. "Direct action is not an option given the terrain and defensive preparation. However, we believe a single skilled marksman, properly positioned, could neutralize the key personnel and effectively shut down the facility." The plan was audacious in its simplicity. Maria would be inserted by helicopter into mountains overlooking the training facility, establish a concealed position, and systematically eliminate the foreign advisors and senior Taliban commanders. Without their leadership and expertise, the facility would become ineffective and the remaining fighters would likely disperse. "The shots will range from 800 to 1,200 meters, Patterson continued. "The terrain analysis suggests multiple targets will be visible from a properly chosen overwatch position. You'll have a 12-hour window to complete the mission before extraction." Maria asked the obvious question. "What about security? If this facility is as important as you suggest, they'll have counter-sniper measures in place." "Intelligence indicates minimal counter-sniper capability," replied Major Williams, who was handling the tactical briefing. "The facility was designed to train snipers, not defend against them. Most of their security focuses on preventing ground assault." The mission planning session lasted 4 hours, covering insertion routes, target identification, extraction procedures, and contingency plans. Maria would be operating alone, without the spotters and support personnel normally assigned to such complex engagements. "One additional factor," Patterson said as the briefing concluded. "The Pakistani border is less than 2 kilometers from the target facility. If you miss any targets and they escape across the border, we lose any chance of neutralizing them." The implication was clear. This would be a one-shot opportunity requiring perfect execution. Any mistakes would not only compromise the mission, but could also result in the loss of valuable intelligence targets. Maria spent the next 48 hours in intensive preparation. She studied satellite imagery until she could identify every rock and shadow around the target facility. She rehearsed range calculations for shots from 800 to 1,300 meters, accounting for the mountain altitude and expected weather conditions. Most importantly, she zeroed her rifle at the exact altitude and atmospheric conditions she would encounter during the mission. The thin air at 8,000 feet elevation would affect her bullet trajectory, and even small errors in calculation could result in missed shots at extreme range. The insertion flight took place during a moonless night, with Maria riding in a specially modified helicopter designed for covert operations. The crew wore night vision goggles and flew without navigation lights, following terrain features to avoid detection by enemy radar. 2 minutes to insertion, the crew chief called over the intercom. Maria checked her equipment one final time. She carried her Barrett rifle, 300 rounds of match-grade ammunition, and enough food and water for 24 hours. Her camouflage was specifically designed for the rocky terrain around the target facility. The helicopter settled onto a narrow ridge approximately 2 kilometers from the target compound. Maria disappeared into the darkness within seconds, beginning her approach to the overwatch position she had selected during mission planning. The movement to her firing position required 3 hours of careful navigation through treacherous mountain terrain. Maria moved slowly, testing each footstep to avoid dislodging loose rocks that might reveal her presence. She reached her selected position 90 minutes before dawn, giving her time to prepare her hide and confirm her range calculations. Through her night vision scope, Maria could see lights in the target compound below. Intelligence had been accurate. The facility was definitely active, with guards visible at several positions around the perimeter. As dawn broke over the mountains, Maria began identifying her targets through her day scope. The first priority was the foreign advisors, who were distinguishable by their different uniforms and equipment. Intelligence photos helped her confirm their identities as Iranian Revolutionary Guard personnel. At 0630 hours, the targets began their daily routine. 3 advisors emerged from the main building and walked toward what appeared to be a training area where Taliban fighters were waiting. The range to the target was exactly 1,050 meters, an extreme shot, but well within Maria's capabilities. She selected the senior advisor as her first target, a man intelligence had identified as Major Hassan Moradi of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. He was reportedly responsible for training sniper teams throughout eastern Afghanistan. Maria controlled her breathing and made her final ballistic calculations. The morning air was still, with minimal wind to affect her bullet trajectory. Atmospheric conditions were ideal for precision shooting. Her first shot rang out across the mountain valley. Through her scope, she watched Major Moradi collapse instantly. The other advisors immediately sought cover, but Maria was already tracking her second target. 1,000 meters away, chaos erupted in the compound as guards tried to identify the source of the shooting. Maria's second shot eliminated another advisor who had taken cover behind a building wall. The heavy .50 caliber round punched through his concealment as if it weren't there. The compound's defenders were now actively searching for her position, but they were looking in the wrong direction. Maria's careful positioning had made her muzzle flash difficult to spot from the target area, and the mountain terrain confused the sound of her shots. Her third target was a Taliban commander intelligence had identified as responsible for coordinating sniper operations across 3 provinces. He was running toward a bunker when Maria's shot caught him in the open. At 1,200 meters, it was one of the longest successful shots of her career. By now, the remaining personnel in the compound had taken cover in buildings and bunkers. Maria would need to force them into the open or wait for them to expose themselves. She chose a combination of both tactics, systematically destroying potential hiding places with precision fire while watching for movement. A heavy round into the main building's window sent glass and debris flying, forcing several figures to evacuate through the rear door. Maria was ready, eliminating 2 more advisors as they sought alternative cover. The psychological effect of the sniper fire was devastating. The remaining personnel in the compound were trapped, unable to identify or counterattack their attacker. Several Taliban fighters attempted to flee the facility entirely, running toward vehicles parked near the compound entrance. Maria eliminated 3 of them before they could reach their transportation. The others abandoned their escape attempt and returned to whatever cover they could find. For the next 2 hours, Maria maintained her deadly vigil over the compound. Occasionally, someone would expose themselves long enough for her to take a shot. Each engagement resulted in another confirmed elimination, steadily reducing the number of threats in the facility. By mid-morning, the compound had fallen silent. No movement was visible from any of the buildings or defensive positions. Maria had systematically eliminated 12 targets, including all 5 foreign advisors and 7 senior Taliban commanders. But her mission wasn't complete. Intelligence had indicated there were additional personnel in the facility, and Maria needed to ensure they were no longer capable of continuing their training activities. She waited patiently, knowing that eventually the survivors would need to move. Humans couldn't remain motionless indefinitely, especially under the psychological pressure of sniper fire. Her patience was rewarded when 3 Taliban fighters attempted to escape through what they thought was a concealed route on the compound's eastern side. Maria's shots eliminated all 3 before they could clear the facility perimeter. The final phase of the engagement came when a truck arrived at the compound from the direction of the Pakistani border. The vehicle apparently contained reinforcements or supplies, and its occupants had no idea what they were driving into. Maria allowed the truck to enter the compound, then eliminated the driver and passenger with 2 quick shots. The vehicle crashed into a building wall, effectively blocking one of the compound's exit routes. At 1,400 hours, exactly 12 hours after her insertion, Maria heard the sound of her extraction helicopter approaching. She had accomplished her mission with devastating effectiveness. 15 confirmed eliminations, including all primary targets identified in the intelligence briefing. The compound below was no longer operational as a sniper training facility. The loss of the foreign advisors and senior commanders had effectively destroyed the enemy's ability to conduct advanced marksmanship training in the region. Maria policed up her equipment and moved to the extraction point, leaving behind no evidence of her presence except the results of her shooting. The helicopter pickup was conducted without incident, and Within 30 minutes, she was airborne and heading back to base. During the flight, Maria reflected on what had become her second legendary engagement in less than a month. 15 long-range eliminations from a single position represented precision shooting at the highest possible level. She had single-handedly destroyed an enemy facility that had been responsible for training dozens of Taliban snipers. But, perhaps more importantly, she had eliminated 5 Iranian advisors whose capture or elimination had been a priority for intelligence services across the region. The documents and equipment they left behind would provide valuable insight into foreign involvement in Taliban operations. The strategic impact of the mission was immediate. Within days, intelligence reports indicated that sniper training activities throughout the region had essentially ceased. Enemy commanders were apparently unwilling to commit additional resources to programs that could be so easily destroyed by American counter-sniper operations. 6 months after the training facility mission, Maria stood in the Pentagon briefing room facing a panel of the highest-ranking military officials in the United States. General Michael Thompson, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, had personally requested her presence to discuss the tactical innovations that had emerged from her Afghanistan engagements. Staff Sergeant Vasquez, General Thompson began. Your actions in Afghanistan have fundamentally changed how we think about counter-sniper operations. 22 confirmed eliminations in 2 separate engagements, all at extreme range and, under hostile conditions, represents capabilities we didn't know existed in our force. The briefing room contained representatives from every branch of the military, along with officials from the CIA and other intelligence agencies. Maria's engagements had become case studies taught at military academies and special operations schools worldwide. The tactical impact has been remarkable, continued General Thompson. Enemy sniper activity in Afghanistan has decreased by 78% since your operations. But the strategic implications are even more significant. We've gained unprecedented intelligence about foreign involvement in terrorist training programs. Maria listened to the presentation with professional detachment. She understood the importance of what she had accomplished, but her focus remained on operational considerations rather than strategic analysis. Her concern was whether American soldiers were safer because of her actions. The Iranian advisors you eliminated at the training facility have been identified as senior officers in the Revolutionary Guard's External Operations Division, explained CIA Deputy Director Sarah Chun. Documents recovered from the facility have exposed training networks operating across 4 different countries. The intelligence windfall from Maria's missions had been extraordinary. The facility raid had yielded computers, communications equipment, and training manuals that provided detailed insight into Iranian support for terrorist organizations throughout the Middle East. Which brings us to why you're here today, General Thompson said. We're establishing a new program based on lessons learned from your operations. The Advanced Precision Engagement Program will train a select number of snipers to operate independently in complex scenarios requiring extreme range accuracy. The program would be unlike anything previously attempted by the military. Selected snipers would receive intensive training in advanced ballistics, target identification, mission planning, and independent operation in hostile territory. The goal was to create a small number of operators capable of achieving the kind of results Maria had demonstrated in Afghanistan. We want you to lead the training program, General Thompson said directly. Your combat experience and demonstrated capabilities make you uniquely qualified to develop these advanced techniques. Maria considered the offer carefully. Training the next generation of military snipers would be challenging, but rewarding work. She could pass on the hard-won knowledge from her combat experiences, potentially saving countless American lives in future conflicts. I'm honored by the offer, sir, Maria replied. But I'd like to know more about the program structure and selection criteria. The briefing continued for 2 hours, covering everything from training facilities to student selection processes. The program would be based at Fort Bragg, with access to ranges extending out to 2,000 meters for extreme long-range training. Students would be selected from existing sniper schools, choosing only those who demonstrated exceptional aptitude and psychological stability. One additional factor, General Thompson noted. Recent intelligence suggests that several foreign militaries are attempting to develop their own precision engagement capabilities in response to your success in Afghanistan. We need to maintain our technological and tactical advantages. The competitive aspect of the program appealed to Maria's professional instincts. Military effectiveness often depended on maintaining advantages over potential opponents, and advanced sniper training could provide exactly that kind of edge. 3 weeks later, Maria found herself at Fort Bragg reviewing applications from sniper candidates across all military branches. The selection process was rigorous, requiring not only demonstrated marksmanship skills, but also psychological evaluations and extensive background investigations. The first class would consist of 12 students, each representing the best sniper talent their respective units could offer. Maria studied their records carefully, looking for indicators of the mental discipline and technical aptitude required for extreme-range precision shooting. Sergeant First Class David Kim from the 82nd Airborne had achieved the highest scores in conventional sniper school and had demonstrated exceptional performance during 2 combat deployments to Iraq. His application showed a natural aptitude for mathematical calculations and an almost obsessive attention to detail. Staff Sergeant Jennifer Walsh from the Marine Corps had been the first woman to graduate from Marine Sniper School and had subsequently served with distinction in Afghanistan. Her psychological evaluation indicated exceptional stress tolerance and decision-making ability under pressure. Captain Robert Martinez from Special Forces brought leadership experience along with advanced sniper qualifications. His record included successful completion of multiple high-risk missions and commendations for tactical innovation under combat conditions. The selection process took 2 weeks, with Maria personally interviewing each candidate. She was looking for specific qualities that went beyond marksmanship skills, the ability to operate independently for extended periods, psychological resilience under extreme stress, and the mental flexibility to adapt to rapidly changing tactical situations. The final selection represented the best sniper talent the military could offer. Each student brought unique strengths and experiences that would contribute to the overall program effectiveness. Training began with advanced ballistics theory, covering atmospheric effects, projectile behavior at extreme ranges, and mathematical calculations for precision engagement. Maria drew on her combat experience to provide real-world context for the theoretical concepts. At ranges beyond 800 meters, environmental factors become critical, Maria explained during the first ballistics lecture. Temperature, humidity, altitude, and wind conditions all affect bullet trajectory in ways that become magnified with distance. The students progressed through increasingly complex scenarios, beginning with stationary targets at known ranges and advancing to moving targets at unknown distances. Maria emphasized the importance of rapid range estimation and ballistic calculation under stress conditions. In combat, you don't have time for extended calculations, she told the class. You need to develop intuitive understanding of ballistics that allows quick, accurate shots in dynamic situations. The psychological training component was equally important. Maria knew from experience that extreme-range shooting required exceptional mental discipline and stress tolerance. Students practiced maintaining focus and accuracy while under simulated stress conditions. Live-fire training progressed from 800 meters to 1,500 meters, with students using the same Barrett M82 rifles that Maria had employed in Afghanistan. Each shot was analyzed for accuracy and technique, with immediate feedback provided to correct any deficiencies. Precision shooting is about consistency, Maria emphasized. Every shot should be identical in terms of body position, breathing control, trigger squeeze, and follow-through. Variables in technique translate directly to variables in bullet impact. The advanced students also received training in mission planning and independent operation. Maria shared lessons learned from her Afghanistan missions, emphasizing the importance of careful preparation and tactical flexibility. No plan survives contact with the enemy, she explained. You need to be prepared to adapt your tactics based on changing conditions while maintaining focus on your primary objectives. Student performance varied considerably during the early weeks of training. Some demonstrated natural aptitude for extreme-range shooting, while others struggled with the mathematical and psychological demands of the program. Sergeant Kim proved exceptional at ballistic calculations, able to rapidly compute firing solutions for complex scenarios involving multiple environmental variables. His shots consistently grouped within inches at ranges exceeding 1,200 meters. Staff Sergeant Walsh demonstrated remarkable stress tolerance, maintaining precision accuracy even when subjected to simulated combat conditions including explosions, gunfire, and time pressure. Her psychological resilience reminded Maria of her own mental approach during the Afghanistan engagements. Captain Martinez excelled at mission planning and tactical analysis. He had an intuitive understanding of terrain analysis and target identification that complemented his technical shooting skills. As the program progressed, Maria began incorporating lessons learned from her specific combat experiences. Students practiced engaging multiple targets in sequence, simulating the kind of complex scenarios she had faced in the Valley ambush. Target prioritization is critical when engaging multiple threats, Maria explained. You need to eliminate the most dangerous targets first while maintaining awareness of the overall tactical situation. The training culminated in a complex field exercise designed to replicate the conditions Maria had faced during her facility raid mission. Students were inserted into remote terrain and required to engage targets at ranges up to 1,300 meters while operating independently for 12 hours. The exercise results exceeded all expectations. Every student successfully engaged their assigned targets, with several achieving elimination percentages comparable to Maria's combat performance. The program had successfully transferred advanced precision engagement capabilities to a new generation of military snipers. Outstanding performance, Maria told the graduating class. You've demonstrated capabilities that will make American forces more effective in any future conflicts. But remember that these skills come with tremendous responsibility. The graduation ceremony was attended by senior military officials who recognized the strategic importance of the Advanced Precision Engagement Program. General Thompson personally presented certificates to each graduate, acknowledging their achievement in mastering techniques developed through Maria's combat experience. This program represents a new chapter in military sniper training, General Thompson said during his address. The capabilities you've developed here will serve our nation for years to come. Following graduation, the Advanced Precision Engagement graduates were assigned to special operations units worldwide, carrying their enhanced skills to every theater where American forces operated. Their presence immediately improved counter-sniper capabilities and provided commanders with precision engagement options that had previously been unavailable. Maria remained at Fort Bragg to train subsequent classes, refining the program based on lessons learned from the first group of students. Each iteration became more effective as she incorporated feedback and developed new training techniques. But her most satisfying moments came when she received reports of her former students successfully applying their training in combat situations. Staff Sergeant Walsh eliminated 3 enemy snipers during an operation in Syria, using techniques she had learned in Maria's program. Sergeant Kim provided precision fire support during a hostage rescue mission in Africa, making shots at ranges that would have been impossible without his advanced training. The program's success led to requests for similar training from allied militaries. Maria found herself instructing special operations snipers from Britain, Australia, and other NATO countries, sharing American tactical innovations while learning from their experiences and perspectives. Years later, as Maria reflected on her transition from combat operator to instructor, she realized that her greatest contribution hadn't been the 22 eliminations she achieved in Afghanistan. Instead, it was the hundreds of soldiers who had benefited from the training programs based on her combat experience. The techniques she developed during those deadly engagements in Afghan mountains had been systematized, refined, and passed on to a new generation of military professionals. Her legacy wasn't measured in enemy casualties, but in American lives saved through improved tactical capabilities. The whispered words of those SEALs trapped in the valley, "We're surrounded by snipers," had led to developments that made such situations less deadly for American forces worldwide. Every soldier who benefited from advanced precision engagement training carried forward a piece of Maria's expertise, and dedication. In quiet moments, Maria still thought about that morning when 7 enemy snipers had waited in ambush for an American Special Operations team. The Valley had tested every aspect of her training, experience, and mental toughness. But, more importantly, it had provided the foundation for innovations that would protect American soldiers for generations to come. The true measure of her success wasn't the medals or commendations, but the knowledge that somewhere in the world, soldiers trained in her techniques were using those skills to complete their missions and return home safely to their families.